Hello, friends. Welcome in. It is a happy Tuesday to all of you and yours. It's a Revved Up Sports Show. It's hashtag Real Race Talk. We're back doing it once again, and welcome to a brand new, I would say welcome to a brand new race season, but it has already been off and rolling. And this show continues to roll each and every Monday, Tuesday, special time today. Totally unorthodox, everything that we're doing today. It is the Revved Up Sports Show, Tuesday, 7 o'clock. That is Showtime Bobby Chaffee. As you look at him, I believe he is on the right side of your screen. I'm over on the left side. We would love a follow on Twitter from you guys, or X. He's at Bobby Chaffee. I'm at the Rodney R. We're live everywhere, and we're going, and we're podcast afterwards. Just look up Revved Up, type in Revved Up Sports Show, and odds are you're going to find an audio or video podcast. The show presented by On Demand Shirts, audio visual consultations. And Bobby, we're off and going. I mean, there are mod lights on the track right now at Ocala, as you've got the late models going. This past week has been pretty damn cool watching all the different stuff going on.
Lots of stuff. Although I liked it better when East Bay was racing. It seemed like there was a little bit more action last year in the lead up to the Daytona 500 and all the speed weeks and the World Series and all of that. But that kicks off next week, the World Series. So that one's going to be fun. Can't wait for that to start kicking off. That's going to be all on our friends over at Flow Racing all week. So those would be a lot of fun events. World Series always amazes me just because of the fact you've got the same teams running all along. And, you know, they sometimes there's rivalries built in there. Sometimes there's not. But the World Series, one thing you can say about the World Series asphalt race over there at Rusty Marcus in New Smyrna, it never disappoints.
Yeah, and that's the thing with that whole program is that you kind of get a prelude to this because I mean, you got Volusia already started on the dirt, so you already kind of have a little bit of that going off. But now once you get to the asphalt portion, you know, once we get to Daytona 500 week, that's something that's really going to be interesting to watch and see. What happens, because every year, you know, we talk to Rusty, and I'm sure that I will reach out and try to get him on here to do his prelude, because he's done it here for the last couple of years. There's always something there at New Smyrna that you remember the weather was horrible. You know, they had everything that they had to do to get that track together. So it's going to be fun to see how that all works out.
Yeah, it's fun. I mean, New Smyrna is not that far from Daytona, for sure. So if you've never been to New Smyrna, it's a hop, skip, and a jump there from Daytona Beach. You just you get on the beach and start heading, I think, southbound.
Yeah.
There from Daytona, and it's right there. Same thing with Volusia. Volusia's right down the street from Daytona too. So two outstanding racetracks right there, all close together, and the mecca of racing there, because it's, you know, International Speedway Boulevard runs the whole length of the city of Daytona, all the way from I-4 all the way down to the beach. So
kind of one of those things to where I think a lot of hardcore racing fans can go in there and do the week, you know, the prelude, the week of, and all that, and then they're done. I mean, they go home and watch the 500 at home, you know. So I know that happens quite a bit. You guys feel free to check in if you're on Facebook or YouTube, or I don't think you really can on X. If you're on one of the X channels, just send us a message right there, and we'll try to get to that as soon as we can. Our man right there, Sugar Sean Folsom, I'm sure he's gearing up, has a busy year ahead of him. We got one right here. Our man Brendan John Harrison, the fire alarm went off during the press conference with Logano and Ryan Blaney. Well, that kind of leads us into, and on the show, Dillon Gaither is going to join us here in about less than 10 minutes to talk about his win at I-37 Speedway. Massive event they had that we talked about last week, Saturday and Sunday race. And then we're going to talk some modifieds scheduled to go with Nathan Moore right around 7:35. So pretty compact show right here on a special day and time. But with the Bowman Gray experience, and I think it's going to be the kind of thing that we go back and forth, Bobby, in between everything that we're doing. I think NASCAR did a really good job with this. I think that they went to the grassroots. It looked really good on TV. And I don't hear a lot of people complaining. Right now.
Not a lot of squeaky wheels after the Bowman Gray race. Anybody that said you couldn't pass didn't watch that bright yellow highlighter color number 12 start dead ass last and make his way all the way to second with virtually not a mark on that car.
No, I didn't see anything.
Pretty pristine by the time he got done to the end of that race. But the only thing that surprised me, though, was that the Fox did an okay job, in my opinion, covering the race. But when you got to watch the video shorts on Facebook and YouTube and Twitter or X or whatever, some of the handheld videos from the fans and the phones, those cars looked faster and they sounded better what they did on the TV broadcast. So I don't know, though. I mean, I think that, they're talking about moving it to Brazil now after year number 1. I don't know, dude. It's not like the Coliseum where you dump $4 or $5 million into a track and tear it up once, but I just don't see them. They dropped a pretty penny there at Bowman Gray. I think they'll keep it there at least another year.
Yeah.
The All-Star race, move the All-Star race to Bowman Gray, and then give Wilkesboro a points race. So
I think that this is going to be probably a 3-year plan for them to stay there. And what I liked about this race, a lot of things I liked about this race. When it came to the coverage on Fox, and I caught, I think it was 20 laps in by the time I caught the main event. And it really seemed like to me what Fox was trying to do with the aerial shots and all the different whatever. I think they were trying to make it look bigger than it actually was. And I think part of the romance with this whole thing was that it wasn't big, that it was more intimate, that it was very short track. And that's what I was hoping that they were going to dial into, which they did. And, now I see, everybody's popping out of the woodwork. You need to have it here and you need to have it there and whatever. And for all the stones that want to be cast at NASCAR and all the different things like that, NASCAR spent a lot of money to get this place up to par. And it's very funny to me right now that after the fact, I posted on Facebook where when they lit the lights up and the place looked extravagant, it's like when NASCAR made the move and they put the safer barriers in, people are bitching about, well, they're ruining our track. Well, they weren't saying that when that place was lit up. You know what I mean? So that's a lot of money to go in there and fix these things. And it's one of those things, Bobby, that my first thought, the checkered flag flew on that race. And I thought about the conversations that you and I have had for the better part of 10 years, damn near. It's like, it was great. How do you follow it up? What happens the next time?
Well, my thing is, does the community look at it differently if Chase Elliott doesn't win that race?
Right there. The fan favorite won the race. I think it would have been one of those things with if he'd have won, or if you'd had one of those madhouse finishes. I think it would have been hit either way. If Logano goes up there and runs over Chase Elliott, people would have been pissed off, but it would have been a good thing because it was the typical whatever. But my whole thing is with the folks that are going about, let's do it here, let's do it there. NASCAR has a lot of money. They really do. But I don't think anybody has an idea really what they spent to do this.
That's the one thing that never got addressed. They never said how much money they spent. And they never really said how much money they spent at Wilkesboro, but it was in the tens of millions of dollars at Wilkesboro to get it ready. I want to say they spent $5 or $6 million there at Rockingham trying to get Rockingham up to date. So that's another one that you got to try to see. That's a tough sell on Easter weekend on a Saturday. You got a double header in there, but I don't know. That's going to be a tough sell. I'm still working on trying to get to that race. I do have a place to stay that is 4.5 miles from that racetrack. So we'll see about trying to go there. Hell, I got to work on COTA first. So,
well, And I think the whole thing is where coming out of this, I mean, NASCAR did it's really a no-brainer on why the racing was better here. I mean, I keep seeing folks talking about, and it's one of those things where when folks compare the Coliseum to Bowman Gray, it's like, okay, the racing kind of sucked at the Coliseum, which it did. I mean, let's be very candid here. It wasn't very good. I mean, it wasn't good.
Comparatively, the two,
Yeah,
it sucked compared to Bowman Gray.
it did. It did. But what you had at Bowman Gray is what I liked about Bowman Gray is the fact that you had the teams in there and they were, in a regular pit area, whatever. That's a seasoned racing surface. I mean, that's not a brand new layer of asphalt or concrete or whatever. At the Coliseum, every year they go in there, Bobby, and they're laying another strip down. I mean, this is a weathered thing, and tire fall off came into this, and with Goodyear doing the soft tire and all of that, that's the underlying thing. I mean, I think if they'd race at the Coliseum on, I don't know, 10-year-old pavement, I mean, I think we'd have had a different result there. But that's the whole thing right there when you really dig into it. And this is a racetrack. Come on, man. It just 18,000 people in there. The place was jammed. LA Coliseum, what's that sit? 65,000? Ain't nobody there. What did we hear?
Yeah, had 40 the first year, or 6. I think they had 55 the first year out of 70,000 seats. I think they had 40,000 one year, and then they had like 30 with the rain delay, moving the race up a day last year. So
yeah. So I mean, I think that's a lot of it. A lot of that comes down to that Bowman Gray is just a racetrack. I mean, it's really what it should be, and it was a really damn good show. I mean, it's hard to shoot bullets at it. I mean, I'm sure people have, but I thoroughly enjoyed what I saw. I mean, to be honest with you.
And it was a short track package too, minus the super soft tire from Martinsville.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that it's and Wilkesboro too. So I mean, I think that it's I just I would be interested in the overall view of the race had somebody not named Chase Elliott won that race.
Yeah.
Or somebody that's not in a fan favorite. If Blaney would have won that race, okay, that's fine too. You get a Logano in there that wins that race. Ain't nobody going to be happy about that. You get, Denny Hamlin in there to win that race. Ain't nobody going to be happy about that. Reddick right on there on the borderline. Bubba Wallace. Can you imagine if Bubba won that damn race?
Oh, God. Yeah.
Good Lord. They'd have ripped that new place apart.
Yeah. And I think the underlying thing to think about is kind of something that I alluded to a while ago is that, okay, NASCAR has come in because what would happen at the Coliseum is they came in, they did whatever they did, and they shagged ass, in your words, the best words I've ever heard. They shagged ass and left and tore the place apart, and they're gone. The whole thing is for Winston-Salem, I mean, for all of that community, for that racetrack, for the diehard fans that go there, they're going to go back there when that season starts in April, and that shit is still there. They've got, I mean, not a brand new racetrack, but they've got an updated racetrack. Thank you, NASCAR. I mean, and that's where I go back to my point about, spending a lot of money in this and, going to different places and all this, that, and the other. It's easier said than done. I think you need to hang here at Bowman Gray for a little bit. I've heard names thrown out. I do think that you keep this in Florida. You mentioned New Smyrna. Try it there. Try it at Five Flags. I mean, try it at
Hickory's been brought up a lot. So it was like, think of what Hickory could be with $1 million in it.
Yeah. And that's the whole thing. That's the whole thing where to all the NASCAR detractors, it's like, we really like what we saw. We should do it here, but we want you to come do what you did there. Because let's be very candid here, friends. You could not do what they just did with the place in the shape that it was before NASCAR assumed that lease. No offense. Yeah, no offense. That was not possible. That was a shithole compared to what it is now.
The only place they're running with Armco barriers, is Watkins Glen, and they got safer barriers around 3/4 of that place now.
Yeah, exactly. So that's a whole thing right there where I think for a lot of folks that are happy about everything and it showcased short track racing. It showcased the Madhouse. It showcased, by the way, we'll say that. All right, let's go to the hotline. Let's go to the hotline because we did have great racing in Texas. this past weekend. I-37, we talked to Ray Doyon last week, and he was talking about how they were shifting the Texas Showdown around and so forth. One of the races on that card was going to be the factory stocks, and we know that in Texas and Louisiana and all these Mississippi, I mean, you have no lack of factory stock competitors. At the end of the day, in Pleasanton, it is our man Dillon Gaither that wins that race, and he joins us on the hotline. Dillon, how we doing, brother?
Good. How about yourselves?
Doing well, man. Doing well. So, how's everything going for you after that big win, man? That's a hell of a way to start the year.
Yeah, no, everything's going good. Just kind of definitely a good start to the year. Definitely looking into more races with Paul and them this year. I think I don't know what we're doing yet as far as the 37 schedule or traveling schedule, but definitely makes a top off for the year right now. Starting off on a good note.
No doubt.
So how did that track change being a daytime race? I know a majority of the races there at night, and they had to rework that track kind of in the middle of the day. How did it change over the course of the weekend for you, especially being a day race?
So starting off Saturday night, it was actually slicked off from bottom to top. Had a pretty good groove on the top side off exit. But yeah, turning into Sunday, they actually ended up moving the tires out from the bottom, pretty much all heat races long, for the sport mods and mods. So it actually kind of rubbered up the middle, and then when they put the tires back in for our feature, it started to rubber up pretty well on the bottom with the sun beating down and just drying out the track very well. So the 10-inch slicks take a very good liking to that.
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of take us through the whole weekend there, Dillon, because it was one of those things like we talked about. It was, Bobby said there's supposed to be a night race when everything kind of moved itself around. I mean, what happens with the mindset? I mean, I know a lot of times you see cars and drivers that are fast at one point, but you seemed really solid all weekend. Just kind of take us through the whole, start to finish of everything working out for you there.
Yeah, so the track actually, 3 different nights of racing and 3 different totally tracks. Friday night was hammered down practice. I never lifted in the last lap I ran there. Saturday night, like I said, it went from bottom to top, slick to the very, very top. And if you go back back on Race On, you see Dalton Faulkner and Justin Whitehead literally rolling the rim around that racetrack. I thought I was on the high side, and I looked up and I was not on the high side. And then going into Sunday, it's not the first time we ran in the day. I know down the race ranch we had that Sunday race as well, so kind of a good little start at the end of the year last year to doing the day race again. We had some notes on that to kind of where to be at from that point to Sunday. So yeah, 3 totally different tracks, but definitely they worked in my favor. Rolling the bottom, that's 37. If I give me the bottom, I'm pretty good there.
Mm-hmm.
So what's it do for your program, Dillon, to beat 2 of the heaviest hitters in that factory stock class there with Justin Whitehead and Dalton Faulkner? I mean, like I said, those guys were ripping the top and you thought you were up there. I mean, what's it feel like in the program wise and for yourself personally to beat 2 heavyweights like that?
Definitely a tip off to my hat. I even talked to Dalton and Justin. I didn't get to talk to Justin on the take. I got to talk to Dalton. Like I told him, it's definitely an accomplishment to beat those guys. When they race anywhere from 6 to 8 races a year, and I don't race that many. And then when they get down to our area and we get to race against them, and I can go toe to toe with them, it's a big accomplishment on our program of what we have compared, not necessarily car wise, but just what they're able to do behind a wheel and how many races they do a year. So it's definitely makes our program a lot stronger now. Not that we were kind of a slouch a little bit, but it definitely puts us in the right direction going into 2025 on both cars, either Paul's and even on my own equipment. It definitely is going to help us out.
Yeah, no doubt. Dillon, I mean, you guys, I mean, you and your family, your dad, I mean, your brother, I mean, I know you all. I mean, it goes way back. I mean, for me with you guys, how great is it for you to win a race like this on that weekend? And again, carrying that number on that car. I mean, it's got the same font. It's got everything. It's right there in the family, with the great Donnie Horelka, Paul Horelka. I mean, that's a tradition right there. How great to win something like this. It's on a national stage where you got guys from all over the country coming in for a modified race, that you win that and carrying that livery, man. That's got to be really special for you to be able to drive one of those cars.
Yes, no, it's definitely a more of a privilege for me to race it. Donnie Horelka was one of my biggest fans watching at San Antonio Speedway. Yeah. And getting the call, it was a late night one time to get, and when I got it, to run the car, that was an absolute yes. There's no doubt about it. Going into the weekend, yeah, but like you said, with all those guys from Nebraska, Iowa, I mean, North Dakota, everywhere else, and a lot of those guys, they watch us just to see how the track's changing. You don't think there's that many eyes on you until you really think about it after the races are over. So you had to win the stage. That's my biggest win I've won, payout wise. So it's definitely a tip to me. But at the end of the day, Paul, rumor was Paul said that he didn't think we would win, but he just wanted to know that we were there, that they knew that we were there.
Yeah.
And to see him smile and everything of that, taking the 41 to victory for him, that's the biggest thing for me. That's the biggest thing I take from all this. I just want to go out there and give Paul good runs that he deserves for the equipment that he gives me.
So cool.
So what do these people think, all these modified guys, what do they think of a factory stock, basically a stock car running on 10-inch slicks down here in Texas? What did you get any guys going, how the hell does that work? Or I mean, how did they, factory stocks aren't everywhere. There's a version of them, but yeah, what did the guys think of them big mods and stuff walking around and seeing these cars on 10-inch slicks running on dirt?
Yeah, I didn't see or hear much of it down. I was up at the very top, so down the very bottom. I don't know how those guys thought about it. I'm sure even going East Coast racing when my dad was going, they still think we're crazy doing it. So, but surprisingly, it is actually surprisingly faster than what people think it is. Just into Sunday night, just like my interview after I won, I could drive the car off the right front. It just started to rubber up a whole lot, and it could just turn off the right front. It makes no sense, but it works.
Mm-hmm. So for you, Dillon, I mean, what's on tap? I mean, let's talk dirt first, because you're one of those guys. You're on that list of people that we talk about that can do both of these and do it really, really well. What all do you have planned for 2025? I know that changes all the time. I mean, I know it fluctuates. So what's on the calendar now as we talk here on February 4th, 2025?
So with the Paul Hiroka stuff, I think we'll be racing majority of the I-37 schedule, just because of him. It's closer for him. It's easier for the whole family to get to go to there. On my own equipment with me and Jerry, Jim Miller, and my dad and us, or my dad racing, we'll kind of still do what we did kind of last year, kind of travel around. I do want to try to make some of the big races. We'll kind of see how that goes. Obviously, like you said, everything kind of always changes.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, mostly kind of go to all the tracks around Texana, Cotton Bowl, race, the race ranch. I'll be at 37 with the 41 car, and then if Paul wants to go somewhere with his cars, we'll go there too. But if not, we'll be taking my personal stuff, kind of just go everywhere else throughout the year.
That's right.
They got some big things happening all over. 37, the Race Ranch, Texana, all of them got big shows coming up. So a lot of good time to win some good money when you get the big races going. Talk about racing with your dad. You brought it up a couple of times. Obviously, we talked to the dads that have been multi-generational racers, right? It's like, did you have more fun racing with your dad or racing with your kids? I mean, what's it like racing with your old man? I mean, he's been at it a long time.
A long time.
I mean, yeah, long time. And he just hadn't given it up yet. So he's still got that fire to race just as bad as the boys do. So what's it like racing with your dad, or racing with your dad and your equipment, and then just you get a chance to race against him sometimes?
Yeah, no, it's definitely it's a blast to do. Just with him even racing my equipment, or just me going to crew chief for him. Both of it's fun to me. I like to see him I like him in the car and just calming him down. It's kind of totally the roles reversed. Back when me and my brother first started, and him telling us what to do, is definitely the same. It's rolled now. I kind of tell him, calm your nerves, just take one lap at a time. It's just how we do it. It's a good time. I enjoy that he's at the age he is. He's still able to do it and do it with both of us. Even we've all three raced against each other on the asphalt track at Houston, and then now me and him get to race each other on the dirt. So it's definitely it's fun. It's a family thing, and it's more. It's hard to say. It's just fun to do it with him.
Yeah.
That's the best thing at the end of the day.
Yeah. And on the family thing, I mean, I know we've talked about this before, Dillon, but I mean, talk about kind of the anchor with the whole thing right there. Tara, has to put up with all you dinglings. I mean, all you knuckleheads. I mean, she's kind of the whole thing right there that kind of keeps the glue together. You know, with you guys talk about your mom, a lot of years herself in this sport, and it's really cool. It's really cool to me to go to the racetrack and see all you guys still in such a cohesive unit. I mean, kind of talk about that part. She's always right there with you guys, ready for whatever happens.
Yeah, she doesn't go to the track a whole lot sometimes, depending on what tracks we are at. She chooses to go to just because of family staying back with the grandkids and doing stuff like that. But yeah, majority of the time she is the glue of it, especially on my dad's side. I got to do a lot of convincing to her to let him go racing sometimes, or if something happens, I gotta mix that together. But majority of the time she's pretty good about it. She enjoys it just as much as all of us do, and watching us do it. So, like they all say, once it's in your blood, you can never come out.
That's right.
It is. There's lots of things that are addicting, but I don't think anything costs more than race cars. That's for sure, because they never get cheaper, and they never get easier. But it's like you always want to go faster and faster the next car you get. So you start out in a hobby stock, get addicted to it. Next thing you know, you're in a late model. In terms of the overall, where do you think factory stocks are in the grand scheme of things right now? It seemed like they got real big when you had a lot of guys jumping from higher level equipment down into the factory stocks as they run for all the big money shows. 5,000, 10,000, coming up 30,000 there at Boot Hill coming up this season. Like, where are the factory stocks now? Are they in a good spot, or do you see it downturning a little bit? I mean, what's your view as somebody that has one? What's your view on where they're at in the grand scheme of things right now?
So yeah, I mean that's the biggest thing is these big money races. It's helped out a lot to get the class going, and there's so many of them, so that definitely helps with the car counts on those. But on a local night, it kind of hurts because of the big shows. A lot of people would rather just go run those. I mean, there's a full schedule out there of just big shows, and people rather run those than sometimes go, just a local racetrack to go race. I guess you would say on the rule side of it, yeah, there's something that's changed, but that just depends on what rules you go with. Each track could be different rules or USRA and how they determine that. It's just like anything else. Sometimes, you try to do changes to help a class, but you burn a class. I think they're still in the right direction. They're still obviously, I mean, you look all around throughout the Dallas area, and all just even down south we do normally have anywhere from 20 to 24 cars in a field. So it's still a good car count. I still think it's going the right direction. Definitely, I know a lot of people want to go to the 8-inch tires. I think these 10-inch slicks with grooves, but the cost of it and helping has done a whole lot. There's the second time I ran on the grooves, and I enjoyed racing on the grooves, and that's a little bit of work, but the time you put into the money you cost on a brand new 8-inch tire, I'd much rather go with the groove slick. So I think they're still on the right track of it. But obviously, that things can always change and take a turn. One track does one, they all follow suit. So hopefully they all still work together and keep the class rolling with what they have.
Yeah, no doubt. It's always one of those things where the progress sometimes is the regress on these classes. So lastly, for me, Dillon, what do we get to see from you? I mean, the Houston dates are out. They've been out for a while. Did we get to see you on pavement? Anything there along the lines, maybe some travel to race on the blacktop? Anything there that you can tell us about that you may be doing on the pavement side?
So we kicked around last year, taking the factory stock to go run with the bootleggers factory stock class. I'm still kind of kicking around to that. We do have an extra car in our shop that we may end up converting over just to go run a couple races there in Houston with it. It's just at the beginning of it with the cost that would have taken to change rear end, transmissions and all that at the time of what I had on my factory. It was just too tough to do. And we talked to Owen about it and trying to help him out a little bit on the rules on that side. But yeah, I just got to kick around and see what my dad wants to do. We'll kind of play a year with the other car or talk to Jim Miller with him helping with me on my personal stuff to maybe try to go out there and go back on asphalt. I want to go back there at least once or twice this year. I had a blast when I did race it, so I definitely want to go back with at least the factory.
Absolutely.
Well, Dillon, a hell of a way to kick off the season in style. in a big win at your home track, basically there at I-37. So good luck the rest of the season, and I'm sure when you win a few more big ones, we'll have you back on, talk about how you ass kicked there too.
That's right.
I appreciate y'all. Thank y'all for this.
Absolutely. All right, man. Be well. Stay in touch, and we'll see you soon, I'm sure.
All right, appreciate it.
All right, man. There he goes, Dillon Gaither. Big winner there at I-37 Speedway this past weekend with the Texas Showdown. And like we talked about, with Ray Doyon jumping on with us, I wasn't really sure until I started looking at the entry list and so forth that with everything that was going on. That was, Bobby, that was big time. That was big time. That Pleasanton just pulled off a big-ass race this past weekend.
They did. I mean, with a lot of good stuff. Hit the little bit of the hiccup with the track there on Sunday. But when you have that many cars, you got to do what's best for the show.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes doing that track maintenance there to make the show better and you got to make it for the guys that are coming, right? Like it's factory stocks are kind of like the 4x4s of everything. You run around in a little red wagon in a factory stock and make that thing work, but you get those high dollar sport mods, you get those really high dollar big mods up there. Like you got to have an excellent track to put on a damn good show to make that happen. So I think all in all, we don't get to see the books. We hadn't talked to Ray in depth about some of the stuff. It seemed like it was a success enough to potentially do it again. But I think that the crowd that I saw there with some of the pictures and what I saw with our friends on Race On, I thought it was a hell of a crowd. Our buddy Chris Workman did a hell of a good job with that show. And so I think all in all, I mean, I think there was way more positives than negatives there with the big showdown there at I-37.
Yeah, so Gaither, the man we just talked to, I mean, he wins there in the factories, followed by G.W. Egbert. I mean, that's a name right there. I mean, that may not be a national name or whatever, but it is. I mean, to a lot of people, it is. I mean, but we kind of resort him back to being a Texan, because of everything that he's done here. But Dalton Faulkner, how about Rusty Head? 4th place run there for Rusty Head. It's that's one of those things where a lot of times when you see that 55 car in the pits, it's like that dude is kind of one of those guys where, I mean, I hate to say like a ringer. When he shows up, when that dude's around, you better be ready because he's going to be really good. And Kyle Van Blarkum, 5th place. I mean, that damn good run there. 4th and 5th to me were very impressive. I mean, not to discount anything about the other guys, but to see that those guys, I mean, really good run there for Rusty and for Kyle.
Is Rusty still running that auction car that he won? Is that the same one, or did he build a new one?
He still has it. He still has that one, but he's done some upgrading and has another one. But that one too is just as fast. Whenever he runs that one, that's a Super Bowl pot car, by the way. So it's like, man, when I'm doing Super Bowl squares, I'm in about 10 different pools right now. It's like, anybody giving away a factory stock? I mean, I'd love to fall into a deal like that.
I mean, they tagged you today Monty tagged you today for that Texana rent-a-ride.
Oh, yeah.
With Tony Blankenship again.
There you go. You got that. Limited modifieds, you had Cody Smith, Mason Martin, Tanner Whitmire, Jared Maupin, 4th place there, along with our man JJ Jennings in the 5th spot. And look at, hey, come on, man. You got to give some love right here. 6th place, ODS James Cole. Mr. Cole's figuring this shit out on the dirt.
He was damn good on the pavement. He's getting there. Him and Joe get their minds to working and all that, and they finally come up with something that's working over there on the dirt track.
Yeah. He's I think it's one of those things to where James, just in conversations that we've had, where he's kind of hasn't been the most comfortable on dirt, but I think he's figuring this thing out. And again, like you said, it's like, Joe and those guys giving him a car that feels comfortable, and that's the biggest part of it. And this is where kind of the whole conversation that we were having right there about with how big this race was for Ray and for Michael and everybody there at 37. Here's your top 5 in the IMCA modifieds in the big mods. $10,000 to win. You had Jordan Grabowski, Nebraska. There you go. Malicote out of Boone, that's Iowa. 3rd was Fitz out of California. Then Cody Thompson out of Sioux City, Iowa, and Garrett Gregory managed to spoil the party there. So This was huge for I-37, in my opinion.
Yeah, great way to showcase the track. It's a gym down there. It's a hell of a racing spot. It's got character, and it's in a unique location. I think, if you could ever try to find a way, we've seen it before where they tried to tie in USMTS to their Cotton Bowl, race ranch, stuff along those lines to open up a season. So I think that it's got the potential to come through, and everybody looks out for their own. But I think that the ability that it has to maybe work together with the race ranch to open up some first of the season. They got the sprint cars that are coming. They're going to run at I-37, I think, on a Wednesday or Thursday night, and then they run around a couple of other racetracks there in South Texas. So it's it was a show. I like to call it a showcase race because you showcased what you had.
Yeah,
and that's the best thing you can do.
Yeah, and I think the good thing for I-37 is where I've kind of, looking around at different, the online media sources. I mean, it's so easy now to go find content. Is that where I'm seeing, Grabowski goes to Texas and wins and all that. And I think that's a really good thing for the modified class because we do have, I mean, there's a big, event coming up in Waco, obviously with stems growing the way that it's doing now. I think this is really a chance for Texas to, I mean, it's big for the state. And I think that the more that I get out and about and see what happens around the country, I come back to here, just in the thought process. And I'm like, man, I really wish that could happen here. But when we do have events like that, and you got a big one coming up at, Rockets racing this weekend, and, with the different tracks that have the events that are coming up, I mean, I think that it's going to be something to where the growth is really there. And I think Texas is going to be just fine.
I think it works out. I mean, because the problem is Texas is so damn big.
Oh God.
You got different races, you can have, we got our cluster of South Texas tracks just south of us. And then you've got the cluster of tracks in North Texas, up around the Metroplex and Northeast into Arklatex. So they, everybody's kind of clustered together, but it seems like everybody has finally found the magic to try to work together to make it work. Now you throw in the Revved up there in Monroe to try to get it ready up there. So, I mean, it's there's a lot of choices when it comes north to south, east and west when it comes to racing in Texas. Yeah,
I think it's coming all together, and you got high limits, that's going to be in Fort Worth here at not too far out. I mean, it's events like that. I think that will continue to grow things, and hopefully on the pavement side, that will, grow, grow itself. I mean, it's one of those things where when you look at this on the Texas point of view, towards like dirt doing whatever, it's like, okay, dirt has the potential to do this, and pavement is still there, and hopefully it makes small strides. It's kind of like that football team that takes like a 10-year ordeal to make themselves good. Hopefully that's what happens there, but we'll find out how all that stuff shakes out. But I mean, like we said, they're racing now in Florida, and they're off and going. I did want to ask you, we did have Nathan Moore set, and he said it was going to be very iffy if he'd be able to get on to talk some sprint car stuff. We can do that another time. I mean, that's the cool thing about this, that we do this every week. I did want to ask you, Bobby, kind of back to the NASCAR and to the talking about Bowman Gray and all that. Have you had a chance to check out the Tubi channel? I've said for a long time, because, NFL has the NFL Network, MLB, NBA, they all have their own stuff. And for the most part, that's all live content. I mean, it's all daily shows that just kind of on a cycle, kind of like what ESPN does with their daily stuff. NASCAR, honestly, for me, and this is, I totally mean this, I would rather see retro NASCAR stuff than have a bunch of people sitting up there talking about NASCAR that are telling me shit that I can get online. So this whole Tubi thing of watching retro races, I'm totally down with that stuff.
I would like it better if it was standalone, like just out of a NASCAR app. I think it would work better for me. Obviously, I set up a Tubi race. That's how I watched the Madhouse Classic there from Bowman Gray, which I was a little disappointed in the coverage of that. I didn't like the fact they didn't have any external mics. You couldn't hear the loud ass modifieds.
Yeah.
That was a little rough trying to watch that, but I mean, I watched it. It's kind of hard to get to because you got to hit like live TV to get to the live channel, and then NASCAR pops up as the first one.
Yeah. So
the interface is not quite there for me. But I obviously I downloaded it. I like watching those classic races. I listened to the old the old races there on Sirius XM during the off season. Some of those ones that are 30 years old and you remember everything about the race because you watched it live 30 years ago. You're like, oh yeah, I remember. I'd be driving in the car with the wife and be like, oh yeah, I remember this race. Yeah, or so and so. Oh, Alan Quickie didn't win this race. He won the pole, but he didn't win this race because he won his first race at Phoenix like 3 or 4 weeks later. She's like, you can't remember our anniversary. How in the hell are you remembering this race from 35 years ago?
I know. I think one of the things that's really cool about that, and it kind of correlated, but I don't know what they've run. I guess it launched on the 29th. I was actually on the road when that happened, but it, like today, for example, I had that on. I was doing some stuff around the studio here, and I saw that they were showing a bunch of the old clashes. And I'm like, okay, well, that kind of gives you a synopsis on how the Clash, what it was, because that's a weird thing with the new fan, because with the Clash on what it is now and what we saw on Saturday or Sunday, as it was, that's not the concept of the Clash, and that's where I think it's a very finite line there in between the Clash and then the All-Star race. I mean, I really think if you're going to do something to where and this is random, I think if you're going to have something to where everybody can be involved, that needs to be the Clash, like with what they did with the heat races and the hooligan race. I mean, yeah, do that there. But the All-Star race, I think they need to really get in there and chisel in and dig that All-Star race to where it's more of an event. I mean, kind of the feeling that we had on Sunday. I mean, that had an All-Star event feel. Narrow that thing down. I mean, everybody doesn't need a chance to get into the All-Star race. And I think that's where both of those two races need to be, and it's the two that NASCAR can kind of, throw the darts up and whatever. That's where they need to determine, what are you trying to accomplish with these two races? I've heard a lot of folks say, what are you trying to accomplish with the Clash? After watching the Clash, I'm like, what are you trying to accomplish with the All-Star race? Because the All-Star race needs to be more, I mean, the words All-Star.
Yeah, but the problem with the All-Star race, though, is that you see the same guys that you see on a weekly show. So it's like every single week is an All-Star race, right?
That's right.
An All-Star race now should be something like an IROC race.
I agree.
You got to see, right? So, but you're not going to be able to do that because let's admit it. The last couple of years, the real star of the All-Star race has been Wilkesboro, the track itself.
Exactly.
One was the amazing feel when you go back to Wilkesboro, everybody gammering for it after being off the schedule for 30 years. And that was the star of that show.
Right.
And last year was still the star of the show because they repaved the joint.
Mm-hmm.
So that's been the biggest thing. I mean, and then you get the prelude rolling up to it when you got the cars tour, you got the trucks racing, some of that other stuff. So it's, the biggest thing about the All-Star race and the Clash, they're made for TV exhibition races. It gets live sports content because we all know we keep up with it because we're sports guys. You're never going to compete with the NFL when it comes to live TV sports numbers, but live TV sports is the only thing keeping cable television alive right now because people TiVo it to watch it again. They don't TiVo it to watch it the first time. You watch live sports live, and that's what's keeping cable companies open right now.
Yeah, and that's why, Netflix, with the move to the NFL and Prime now being a part of NASCAR and everything right there. I mean, it is they're making that move over to live sports. And, for all the pundits that want to bitch about, well, Netflix jacked that up, whatever, that they don't do live stuff. I mean, this is all new to them. It's a brand new environment, just like it is, excuse me, where, I mean, I was on the road. I think it was Thursday oh man, you just had 2 mod lights go over the fence over there at Ocala. But it's one of those things to where, when Flo has a problem at the Chili Bowl, it's the end of the world. It's like, guys, this is all via internet connection, all the stuff we talk about. And I think this is where now with Netflix and Prime and Tubi and Hulu and all the different ones, because this is only the start. We're going to see a bunch of providers that are going to start satelliting over to doing live programming. And it's just so much easier. And I've heard
with that, you got to get live programming, gets eyeballs. It's that simple. That's the formula.
This show's been doing it for a long time, but it's so many people with the Tubi thing. It's like, Well, I ain't paying for that. It's free.
It's free.
If you have a Samsung TV, turn
You
that
see the
thing
smart
on.
TV and internet.
It's right there. Yeah, it's right there. So,
But see, the problem with me though, and you and I go way back watching races on TBS, watching races on ESPN in the mid 80s into the early 90s. You had to pay for that shit back then.
I know, man.
And everybody still bitches about having to pay for races because all the races, half the 3/4 of the Fox races are on FS1 instead of Fox. But it's like back in the glory days that you call it, you still had to pay for ESPN. You just didn't have to pay near as much for ESPN as you do now.
ESPN was premium back in those days. I mean, it was like all the different, back in those days, Time Warner. Back in the old days when you had to have that cable right there, you had the locals and you could add whatever. And ESPN was kind of one of those kind of right in the middle. It did. I mean, it cost a lot of money, but I mean, the whole thing is now, I mean, you buy a TV, the link is right there. It's going to cost you sometimes $10 or whatever. But the whole thing is, so many folks that want to complain about, paying $10-11. I mean, you're going to pay $49, whatever it costs for Flow. You're going to pay whatever it costs for Dirt Vision. I mean, you're going to pay, I mean, even Race On. I mean, no offense. I mean, Race On, what is that? $50, $49, $39, whatever that is. You can't watch for free. I mean, nothing is free unless you go to the track, and that ain't free either. You got to pay to get in. But Bobby, it's cheaper to go to the track. And we talk about that all the time, but you have everything at home. It's much more conducive to just stay home. And that's, man, I'm not sure how we got down this hole, but yeah, it's ongoing, man. It's ongoing.
I mean, I didn't go to I-37 because it was my birthday, right, on Sunday. So that's why I didn't go. Plus, I wanted to watch the Clash.
You should have had a party there.
And so, I watched part of it on Race On. And then got to watch the part of the Clash. So went to lunch, missed part of the race, but it's there to be consumed, and that's the biggest thing. As long as there's a product to consume and something to make it work, then that's what matters the most. Because we've talked about it before. We can go down the rabbit hole again about streaming. The problem is streaming is a necessary evil nowadays. You're like considered an ancient dinosaur if your track doesn't have streaming from somebody.
Yeah.
Or your big event is not streamed by somebody. So
yeah,
it's a necessary evil. It's got to happen.
Streaming has replaced that antenna on the side of your house that you had to go out there and turn to try to get KTBC or KView or whatever, to get the weather report. I mean, it's kind of the way of the world right now, man. And that's the other part of that too, where it's like, where people tell me, well, I just have free TV. I have an over-the-air TV. That ain't free either. You got to have a fucking converter for that. That's, what is that? $39, $29,
$50, depending on the antenna.
Nothing is free. And the whole thing is, it's it's a good inconvenience to have, to be able to, I mean, with the streamers, I mean, flip back and forth. I mean, do different things.
Tubi's owned by Fox.
I know.
People didn't pay that much
content. Yeah, by the content. Yeah, that's pretty obvious. I like it. I mean, I think that like next year at Christmas, that's going to be really nice. Be like, okay, boom. I don't care about the football. Boom. Let's watch an old race. That's really cool to have.
It's hard to believe when you see something from the early 2000s. That was a primetime HD picture, and you're like, damn, it's blurry as hell now.
Isn't that weird? And it's in that small box, it's like about that big, and you have all this room on your TV back here, your AV consultation TV, and it's like, what in the hell was that? And that's the messed up part. I mean, imagine, just think about the 1979 Daytona 500, the 1992 Hooters 500. Imagine that in full 4K as it rolled out of the can. God, that'd be so cool. That's the problem with football, Bobby. Everybody bitching about the referees and all that. It's because we can see it so clearly. We can see everything happening. God, that'd be so cool.
Yeah, it'd be kind of fun to have some of those old school races in that kind of HD. Speaking of HD and your buddy Tom McKay, I got to see that new Pluckers there at South Park Meadows the other day. The TVs shine bright from the highway. In fact, the TVs were so bright and they had them all on, I thought Pluckers was actually open. but I think they're trying to get that place open for the Super Bowl. So
Yeah,
I just walked past there and saw it. I'm like, damn, Tom McKay's a badass.
he is, man. That's one of the major undertakings right there that they've been working on. They're good to go. I mean, you go to a Pluckers, you go to lots of other places, and odds are that they set that up. 255-8678, area code 512. It's probably them that did that. Bobby, we've got about go about 5 more minutes. I do want to ask you this because you sent me this last week. Let's talk about this. Are you surprised that it took this long for a major sanctioning body or whatever on the short track side? I mean, I know NASCAR's all buttoned up and everything that they do. This gambling policy, we see it in football all the time. We've heard about Tim Donahue and all the different things in the NBA and, what was Shohei Ohtani really doing and blah, blah, blah. I mean, I've wondered about this for a long time, and it with the growth of the World of Outlaws and all that, they're finally the ones that they're like, we have a gambling policy.
Surprised NASCAR didn't do it first, but
no, I know.
Because it's hard to fix races with that, especially nowadays. I mean, they do. I mean, you had a little bit of manipulation there at Martinsville, and the whole ceiling fell out.
Yep.
And the hammer was dropped heavily. So, I mean, I think there's a difference between NASCAR dropping the hammer and World Racing Group dropping the hammer.
Yeah.
Because if you get popped by NASCAR and NASCAR kicks your ass out, where are you gonna go?
Mm-hmm.
You get popped by World Racing Group and they kick your ass out, where are you gonna go? High limit.
Yeah.
Right. So it doesn't have as much bite, in my opinion. I'm glad to see it. Speaking of gambling, by the way, not so much gambling. There's still time to join the Revved Up Nation NASCAR Fantasy League for 2025. That is coming up here right before the Daytona 500. You have to be able to get it signed up and ready to go. So, but back to the at hand, with this World Racing Group. I mean, I think it's, I'm waiting for the revenue share to the players for fantasy football because those guys don't get a single penny out of it. And some of those guys get pissed. They're like, well, they'll sit down on purpose or back up on purpose and lose yards just so that they can screw some of the fantasy people over, right? So, not that we've seen that on purpose, but it's really odd when you see somebody needing, 2 points and they bust the thing and they sit because the game's over, right? So it's interesting the way that works sometimes. But yeah, I think that it's a necessary evil nowadays. It won't be long. World Racing Group's the first, but they will definitely not be the last.
Yeah, because that always is the obvious question, when it comes to something that happens on the field, whether it's people, questioning the referees or whatever the case is, or a player did this or whatever. It always comes back to, the amount of money and the lines and sports betting and everything that's going on right now to, how did that influence whatever the case was. And I think it's pretty stupid to say that with whatever happens that whoever's involved in one of those things had no idea about a line or about a whatever. It's so easy to find it now, like we talk about. I mean, like finding racing. I mean, it's really weird for me watching racing from Ocala, Florida on a Tuesday night with, E-mods or whatever the hell they are. And then all of that. I mean, it's all right there. And that question always comes to pass. And, it's never more evident than this season with the football, with the Chiefs. You had the punting, you had the punter, you had everything that's going on there. And it's like, okay, what's the underlying thing here? So the conspiracy things always run out. But I applaud the group right there for getting ahead of it. And my whole thought is, Bobby, when I see something like that, it's like, okay, what happened? Everything is reactive. I mean, there's never anything proactive in this world. Something has to happen and you react. So I'm like, oh, hell. All right. Who was up to no good here?
Somebody did something.
Somebody done something. And, that's
every warning label is there for a reason. Every proactive statement about gambling is there for a reason.
Yep. That's exactly right. So, I mean, that's to be determined on what may have gone on right there. So anyway, great show. We didn't get to talk to Nathan, but that's okay. We did get to talk to Dillon Gaither, and great conversation right there, and a big win on a big weekend for I-37. And quite frankly, Bobby, I think, like we said, a big weekend for Texas dirt track racing. And it only goes, I think, with the Rocket going this weekend, I think we see some really cool stuff happening.
Yeah, and it was the Eiffel Tower up at Rocket this weekend. Is that what that is? Eiffel
Yep.
Tower, big show coming up.
Yep.
So I mean, it'll be, you know, KR knows how to do it. They've got a new ownership group up there, so this is their first chance to get their feet wet for a major show. So I'm interested to see how all that shakes out and rolls on there too. So,
yep, absolutely. All right, friends, thank you for checking in. Please dive in, hit the socials and like them and share them and do all that stuff. I mean, we need all the help we can get. A lot of people checking in tonight, whether on X or Instagram or whatever. Be sure and check in on Apple, Spotify, whatever. We'll have the audio podcast coming up probably in about 1 hour. It'll be there for you. And of course, we have been live on the Texas Sports Unfiltered free audio app, which is always a place to go to catch this thing. Bobby, I always ask you about the rest of the week. I know the rest of your week. So, man, let's have some fun on Sunday. Let's play a football game and let's the Chiefs win again.
I'll be there. I have to take my uncle to the airport in San Antonio on Sunday morning.
Yep.
So I'm leaving the Central Texas headquarters here, heading to San Antonio, going to the airport, coming back to the Central Texas headquarters, get loaded up to go to your place, and then go to your place and then have a good time and then come back home. So it's going to be a busy day Sunday, but I think I could use the distraction. That's for sure.
Well, be ready. All right. There's plenty of it that's going to be going on there at the crib. All right, you guys have a great week. Enjoy your racing. I mean, lots going on. I mean, like I said, right now I'm watching really cool stuff at Ocala, Volusia, everything that's coming up. He's Bobby. I'm Rodney. And we are #Real Race Talk. It is the Revved Up Sports Show. We'll do it next week, probably back at the regular time on Monday at 6:30. I do kind of like 7. I'm going to ask you that on air. I kind of like 7. It's not too bad.
It works. It's not too bad.
Yeah. We were head to head today with a couple of other people, but that's all right. From everything that I can see over here on the other screen, we're doing all right. But anyway, we'll figure that out later. All right, you guys have a great week, and we'll see you next Monday. #Real Race Talk, the Revved Up Sports Show. You all be good.